Welcome to the Tuesday, April 28th, 2020 regular business meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. Due to COVID-19 and in accordance with Alameda County Health Order 2004 issued May 31st and with the Governor's Executive Order N2920, which suspends portions of the Brown Act, this meeting will be conducted entirely via teleconference. In compliance with these orders, a physical location has not been provided for this meeting, and these measures will only apply for as long as the period in which the state or local public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing. There were two committee meetings this morning. The Sustainability and Energy Committee and the Finance Administration Committees both met and will report out under item 19. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll for our directors participating via teleconference?
Directors Coleman.
Present.
Katz.
Present.
Lenny.
Here.
McIntosh.
Here.
Mellon.
Present.
Patterson.
Present.
President Young.
I am here, and we are all participating via teleconference. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, that's weird. All right. We have one award to present. Alex?
Thank you, President Young. It's a pleasure to take the opportunity to provide recognition for receipt of the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, Wastewater Treatment Project of the Year Award. The South Interceptor 3rd Street Phase 2 Rehabilitation Project received the Wastewater Project of the Year Award from Region 9 of the American Society of Civil Engineers. The success of this $12 million construction project is due to well-considered planning, thoughtful design, teamwork, and great execution. We anticipated a 2-year project, but completed the project in just 10 months after starting construction. This can be attributed to the contractor's commitment to finishing early and the dedication of the project team members. The shortened construction period minimized construction impacts to the surrounding community. The team's early communication efforts with businesses and organizations in the affected West Oakland neighborhood were appreciated, and the district received very few complaints. In total, the project rehabilitated 4,700 feet of 105-inch diameter South Interceptor, as well as 5 corroded manhole structures. This project addressed a critical piece of the district's infrastructure and secured many more years of reliable service. Please join me in congratulating the following project team members: John Correa, Wastewater Shift Supervisor; Eric Fukuda, Wastewater Shift Supervisor; Ben Glickstein, Community Affairs Representative 2; Eric Jorgensen, Senior Construction Inspector; John Kaiser, Senior Civil Engineer; Kingsley Kwong, Associate Civil Engineer; Gary Lynn, Associate Civil Engineer; Rebecca Overacre, Associate Civil Engineer; and Gary Warren, Senior Civil Engineer. Thank you very much.
Do we have anybody that's speaking or accepting? No?
No, we have the photograph that shows the award that we received, and
yeah, we can
employees
see that.
are...
I like the Interceptor in the background.
Yes.
Old one, right? Okay, we're now ready. Oh, there are no announcements from closed session. For public comment, if members of the public are calling in.
Participant lines muted. Participant lines unmuted.
Go ahead.
Okay, if there are members of the public calling in and wish to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, the secretary will take your name one at a time. We will call those names in alphabetical grouping and ask that you please state your name, affiliation if applicable, and the topic that you will be speaking about. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. However, I have the discretion to amend this time based on the number of speakers. The secretary, when it's your turn, the secretary will speak your name and cue you when it is time to speak and when your time has concluded. Comments on agenda items will follow the same process and will be heard when the item is up for consideration after any presentation. If you are not speaking, please, but are on the line, please mute your phone to minimize background noise. So with that, is there anyone on the line with their last name beginning A through F, as in Frank, that wishes to make public comment? Okay. Is there anyone letter G through L for public comment?
Eric Larson, President, AFSCME Local 444.
Okay. Letter beginning, last name beginning letters M as in Mary through R as in Robert. Okay, and finally, anyone whose last name begins with the letter S as in Sam through Z as in zebra.
Joey Smith, President, AFSCME Local 2019.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the line who wishes to make public comment? All right. Secretary Cole, Madam Secretary, will you call the speakers?
Eric, your time is going to start now.
Good afternoon, directors. I wanted to take an opportunity to commend Wastewater Director Eileen White and her good work collaborating with Stanford University and University of California, Berkeley, in developing methods to determine community-wide spread of COVID-19 through analysis of prevalence of the virus in untreated sewage, and congratulate her in the award, the grant award, to help expand the research to underserved communities. I'd also like to take an opportunity to suggest a useful spin-off study would be to examine the occupational hazard and risk assessment to wastewater treatment workers by evaluating the virus presence throughout the wastewater treatment and work processes. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Director White in her collaborative efforts with the union locals in being responsive in developing safe working conditions at the main wastewater treatment plant. Thank you. Good job, Eileen.
Thank you.
All right. Joey,
Good afternoon,
your time is starting now.
President. Thank you. Good afternoon, President Young, board members, staff. Today is Workers' Memorial Day, and I'd like to read a little excerpt after saying, Eileen, I heard your interview on KQED radio this morning. Good job. Thank you very much for representing us so well. 50 years ago, Congress passed the Occupational Safety and Health Act promising every worker the right to a safe job. Unions and our allies continue to fight to make that promise a reality, winning protections that makes jobs safer and saves lives. Our work is not done. Each year, thousands of workers are killed and millions more suffer injury or illness because of their jobs. With us dealing with this pandemic right now, it has brought this to mind of many of us who had never even considered it before. Today, on April 28th, the unions of AFL-CIO observe Workers' Memorial Day to remember those who have suffered and died on the job and to renew our fight for safe jobs. This year we come together to call for action on hazards that cause unnecessary injury, illness, and death. We stand united against ongoing attacks on workers' rights and protections and demand that elected officials put working people's well-being above the interests of money. We will fight for the right of every worker to save a job. That promise is fulfilled. Thank you for all your efforts to look for the safety and security and well-being of our East Bay MUD employees. We wish for you to be well and to stay safe.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Joey. And I'm going to ask that actually we adjourn the meeting in honor of Workers' Memorial Day and those workers who sacrificed their lives on the job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, with that, my screen just died. I think it's consent, and we have 14 items on the consent calendar.
I will
anyone
move.
wants to remove
John
an
will
item?
move all 1 through 14.
I would like to have I'm sorry, I didn't have the agenda quite open where it was, item 14 set aside and discussed separately.
Okay.
I'll move in 1 through
motion
13.
on 1 to 13. A second?
So moved.
Is that Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director McIntosh to approve consent items 1 through 13. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Aye.
Oh, roll call. We have to do a roll call. Thank you.
Directors Coleman,
Yes.
Katz,
Yes.
Lenny,
Yes.
McIntosh,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Okay, item 14. Do we have, Doug, you just want to ask a question, or would you like to have a presentation on the item?
I've read the memo. I'm not sure there was much else there. I guess the question. I also just find this an interesting item. Wells Fargo is still on my blacklist for a lot of things, but I didn't know until this memo that the state of California has lifted its suspension or its suspension similar to ours. And I'm curious, do we know, was that suspension by the state done as an action by the state treasurer? Was it a legislative action? Was it a governor's action? Who made that determination?
So we're going to have Robbie Haney, our treasurer, provide the answer.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the decision was made by the state treasurer
Okay.
to take them. So they had a similar suspension to us, started in 2016, and I think the suspension was lifted in 2019, but most recently they've picked them as a senior underwriter on a bond issue, and so that's happening right now, and that's all out of the treasurer's office.
Okay, and again, my understanding here is that the reason that we're lifting is that we believe that there may be circumstances where we can get a better price, and that the suspension is no longer necessary because Wells Fargo is working to redeem itself. I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth here, but I think that's what I'm trying to read here. I guess the question still is, are there other banks or financial institutions that we can be working with? Are we really in a corner? And is this speculative, or is this actual real money that it would cost us?
So there are a few trying to a few of those questions. So there are definitely other banks we can work with. other banks, none of these banks are perfect. They have various things in their past. Obviously, Wells Fargo's was very bad in 2016, and I think it was a very appropriate move, what we did. The thinking is that everyone, as far as we know, everyone sort of lifted their suspensions.
Do what?
Oh, sorry, I was making sure no one was talking. So,
Participant lines muted.
others have lifted their suspensions, including the state. Doesn't mean that we have to, of course, but like this is as time has gone on, people have lifted them. They paid big penalties for sure. There was some real teeth to the stuff that's happened to them. They've, as the memo was saying, they'd still work for us on a few things, and they've actually done a really good job. The next time we do a negotiated underwriting deal, I think there's a decent chance that they could come at a lower price than other places. They're as strong of a bank as the other ones we work with, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, and so there's definitely the chance for lower pricing. There, we didn't put this in the memo. They're a big local employer too, for what that's worth. Obviously they're based out of San Francisco, and so we were just thinking as staff that they definitely felt the message for sure. I think it was a good message to give. In 2017, there was a chance to lift it, and that the timing didn't make sense. But now it felt like with the changes that we outlined that we wanted to give the board the opportunity to lift the suspension, and that is, of course, the staff recommendation.
All right, and I understand that the Finance Committee had a chance to consider this morning. Is that right?
Correct.
And did you guys take a vote on it?
We did, and we recommended.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
I plan to still vote against this. But I'm not gonna throw my body in front of it if other members feel differently.
Yeah, I would. If you're not going to throw your body in front of the stagecoach, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I would like to state that. Thanks. I would like to state that the original suspension was an outgrowth of the specific breach of public trust that was intended to follow the state of California's action by lifting that suspension of our prior decision to not do business with Wells Fargo. I don't think this would preclude future scrutiny of this institution or other similar institutions for different reasons that there may be, but I think we have to move in a measured way that's based on specific reasons and policies. And I think the reasons for the original suspension have run their course, and that's why I supported the action in the committee. But I would remain open to other types of actions to examine accountability of our partners.
Marguerite, may
I? Sure, Frank, go ahead.
The Wells Fargo saga is not ended. It's been a never-ending saga, if anything. And even as recently as last year, they got nailed on some more stuff. They can't even keep a CEO because the place is such a godforsaken mess. As far as I'm concerned, and I think I was president of the board when this motion passed, I can't vote for rescinding this suspension. They still have not cleaned their house. And until they get something that shows that, I'm not willing to let them off the hook.
I plan to support the motion only because I guess I'm in line with Director Katz, is that, Wells Fargo ain't anything close to perfect, but neither is B of A or J.P. Morgan Chase or any big bank that I can think of in terms of their practices and policies.
They're all crooked.
They're all right. You said that, Doug, not me.
The dog's hind leg.
That that, as we look to the, we have not, as an agency, established principles of practice for business people that we do business with on this kind of stuff, and so I'm not prepared to, continue singling out Wells Fargo, but I do think that we should be asking questions about responsible business practices of our financial partners, and as Andy said, looking for additional ways to make clear our values and principles. But I'm for lifting the suspension at this point.
If I can speak to this is John. I mean, they are a huge employer in the Bay Area, and a lot of the people that work at the bank, at least where I go to in Oakland, it's all people of color, and they've, I think, demonstrated, at least where I see it, an effort to outreach into the community. Are they perfect? No. Are any of them perfect? Absolutely not. But I think if we're monitoring, as was talked about with Andy and others, their actions and they go in the wrong direction, then we go back to where we were before. And that sends a strong signal. It also sends a signal to others that we deal with that we're going to watch what you're doing. And if we don't like it, we're going to take action.
I'm sorry. Can't let it go without just saying, these guys created false accounts in real customers' names to hundreds of thousands of customers. It went on for several years. It was corruption rife in the organization. I haven't studied it tremendously. I'm just reading what the summary here. They let go of their CEO and 4 of their board members and paid a bunch of fines. I think they should have been banned from practicing banks and borrowing using federal money, Federal Reserve money to give loans. I understand that was restrained some, but I don't think they've come anywhere near what they need to do to prove that they're a responsible banker.
One thing, the CEO this year or late last year was banned for life by the federal government from being able to be involved in any banking institution going forward. And that rarely happens.
Right. And how much time did he spend in jail for stealing people?
I'm
0.
I'm sure he spent no time in jail.
So,
whatever. It's a philosophical debate.
Spent a lot more time on this. I said.
I'd prefer us to spend. I mean, I would, love to consider some kind of code of practice that we hold our, that we put in place to hold our partners accountable to, as a stronger signal. But we do. If there's any more comments or
only that I would add. My son went to work for Wells Fargo, and he lost his job in the ensuing actions, even though he wasn't there when all the other stuff went on. So I had a strong aversion to them. But I think, they have at least put themselves back in the ball game. And needless to say, we got about 5 directors watching them closely. So whatever they do going forward, we can get them for. We send a strong signal when we throw them out. So I'm just saying, I'll ride with it, and if they do more wrong, they'll be back before us.
Okay. Sounds like we're not going to have a unanimous vote, but that's okay. That's a strong signal, too. Madam Secretary, would you like to call the roll, please?
Yes. Director Coleman?
Yes.
Katz? Director Katz?
Andy?
Yes.
Lenny?
No.
McIntosh?
Yes.
Mellon?
No.
Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes.
Okay. 5-2.
Okay. Well, that was exciting. Oh, my screen just disappeared. Hang on a second.
We're on the determination and
We're on to determination and discussion. But my screen just disappeared. So,
All right, so maybe I can assist by introducing this.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
So it is that time of year where we have the opportunity to file the water supply availability deficiency report, and to provide the presentation, we have Lena Tam. Lena's the manager of the Water Resources Planning Division.
Alex, you're cutting out every other word. I'm not sure whether that's somebody not on mute that could be, or...
I'll work to be closer to the mic if that's the cause.
Risha?
Yep. So let me just get there. There it is. You want to be on the arrow. Go up, up. There you go. And let it go. All right. I think you're going the wrong way.
Okay.
There you go.
Good afternoon, President Young and board members. My apologies for the technical difficulties here. As Alex mentioned, shortly after the April 1st no survey that the state issues, the board makes findings on the availability of our water supply for our customers, the environment, and a number of other contractual obligations that we have. The district has over 120 different water rights agreements, amendments, court decrees, settlements with different agencies on the McCallamy and with the state and federal government. These rely on the findings that the board makes each year on the adequacy of our water supply to serve our customers, the environment, and to meet the contractual obligations of water right holders on the McCallamy, some with agreements that are over 80 years old. The findings that the board makes is based on the forecasted runoff and the total system storage. Our storage levels, as Dave has been reporting and tracking for you, at Pardee is looking fairly well. We're full at Pardee. Our total system storage is over 600,000 acre feet. Prior to the March rains, we were in a fairly precarious situation on whether or not we will be meeting our storage threshold. But with the recent rains and precipitation on the McCallamy Basin, we're looking at a total system storage with median conditions at 580,000 acre feet. And even if we receive no precipitation between now and the end of the water year, we will be over 500,000 acre feet.
Lena, please say when you're advancing to the next slide for the public.
I'm sorry, I'm moving to the next slide. Under the water supply outlook for 2020. So based on the Department of Water Resources April 1st Bulletin 120, our forecasted runoff will be 405,000 acre feet. And that puts us in the range of between 300 and 499,000 acre feet, which is what the index is for dry year conditions. So Comanche releases will be based on dry year conditions for fishery flows. And our total system storage is at 580,000 acre feet. As a reminder, on the next slide, the board had adopted these drought management program guidelines to make sure that our customers are not negatively impacted during temporary shortage conditions like droughts. When our total system storage, after we account for projected runoff and we account for all of our contractual obligation and environmental flows, are at 500,000 acre feet or more, we deem our water supply to be adequate, and we would not be imposing customer rationing. Next slide. So the joint settlement agreement dry year flow releases from Comanche will be at 150 CFS this year, going down to 80 CFS. Our allocation and obligations to Woodbridge Irrigation District will be 60,000 acre feet, which is their full regulated base supply. Jackson Valley Irrigation District will receive their full water rights entitlement at 3,850. Unfortunately, North San Joaquin Water Conservation will not be receiving any water because of the dry year conditions, and there will be no surplus water available based on our current projections. There are 2 groundwater projects that are affected by the water supply conditions. The first is a pilot project, the Demonstration Recharge Extraction and Aquifer Management Project, otherwise known as DREAM. This is a partnership that we had forged with North San Joaquin Water Conservation District, whereby we would be transferring 1,000 acre feet to North San Joaquin for in lieu recharge. Thus far, for the past 2 years, we've transferred about 352 acre feet, with the remainder of 648 in future years if conditions are more favorable. We expect to begin construction on the connection between the groundwater basin in North San Joaquin and the McKinley aqueducts this fall, provided all the COVID-19 restrictions are relaxed. The Bayside Groundwater Project in San Leandro will not be seeing any injections this year because we will not have surplus water conditions. We report our water supply conditions and demands to the State Water Board on a monthly basis, and this is a graphic that shows what our demand has been over the last 6 years. What the State Water Board wants us to do is compare our use to the 2013, which is the pre-drought levels. As you can see, our customers have been pretty diligent in their conservation efforts. We have not rebounded back to the 2013 levels. In fact, during the drought from 2015, we were exceeding the state's mandate of 16% rationing. Our customers came in at around 21, 22%. We're still below what the 2013 levels is. We had a slight bump up in February because precipitation was practically zero in the East Bay, but we're still below what the 2013 levels are. Overall, when you look at the bars below the axis, we're still at like 12 to 14% reduction in customer demands compared to where we were in 2013. So staff recommends that the board makes the following 3 findings through the acceptance of this report: that the district's water supply is sufficient to meet customer demands in 2020, that all of our obligations to other water right holders and to the environment for fishery release are based on dry year conditions, and we will not have surplus water available based on our current water supply projections. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members? Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the staff recommendations?
I'll move to adopt staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Director Linney, seconded by Director Patterson. I realize you have to remind to do this. There's not a way to collect cards. Are there any members of the public that have comments?
Participant lines unmuted.
Okay, hearing none. There's no further discussion. Any further discussion?
Participant lines muted.
Okay, thank you for the report, and we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Directors Coleman,
Yes.
Katz,
Yes.
Linney,
Yes.
McIntosh,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Okay, the motion is adopted. All right, on to the next. I keep losing my screen, I'm sorry.
All right.
Our next item is, and every time I close it, it goes back to the beginning. We have item 16.
Yes, so item 16 was discussed today during the Finance Committee. It's, and I'll speak for the committee saying that it was unanimously supported. If the board would like, we could provide a brief presentation.
Yes, the matter was before the committee also.
Right. So, if you would, so we can provide a brief presentation. Our treasurer, Robbie Haney, will you be in a position to provide this? Travis.
Actually, so Travis George is here.
Oh, thank you, Travis.
I'm going to talk about the extension of a standby letter of credit agreement that we have outstanding for a piece of our commercial paper. You might remember recently we came to you with a plan that we've now executed to pay down some of this type of debt. We paid off $24 million of the roughly $360 million we had outstanding. The agreement that we're talking about today is with Sumitomo Mitsui, which is a Japanese bank. We've been in this agreement with them for 5 years, and it expires in December. The agreement is for $200 million, which and it provides basically a liquidity backup for commercial paper in case some of the commercial paper doesn't get or isn't able to be remarketed. As you'll remember, this type of debt is remarketed basically between 30 and 90 days, typically. And so when it comes due each time, we need to find a new buyer for it. If we were unable to do that, we would either have to use district cash to buy the debt back, or if we didn't have this sort of liquidity facility in place. But since we do, that's what it's here for, and the bank would then be on the hook to come to step up and buy the debt. So for that service, we pay them 31.5 basis points on that $200 million per year, which is an annual cost of $630,000. That's what the cost had been going, historically. We sat down with Sumitomo a couple of months ago, and both sides knowing that the agreement was coming to an end this year, Sumitomo actually offered well in advance of the agreement ending to extend the agreement by 4 years at a lower cost than they'd given us before, so saving a 1.5 basis points. In addition, since we paid off that $24 million recently, the agreement will only be for $176 million. So the combination of a smaller agreement and a better rate will result in a decrease in the amount of costs that the district pays on an annual basis by over $26,000. When they came to us with the offer of extension, we certainly we appreciated it, but we took it back to our financial advisor, and internally we discussed it quite a bit and weighed the different costs and benefits of all the options available to us. And really the other option, other than extending with them, is to go out to the market through an RFP and see what else we could get. And based on our own knowledge of the industry and as well as our financial advisor's knowledge, I think it was very clear that their offer of 30 basis points for 4 years was a very attractive deal, and one that we would not likely improve upon if we went out to the market to see what else was available. In addition, there's obviously a cost to conducting an RFP, and if we were to select someone else, there's actually an additional cost of changing liquidity providers. So if someone else came in with a lower bid, the amount of money we'd have to save from going with them would actually have to even be more than the bid itself, because they'd have to overcome for us the added cost of changing providers. So all of that said, I think we, staff and our financial advisor, are convinced that this is a very good deal for the district and the right way to move forward. So we're recommending approval of the extension with Sumitomo at 30 basis points, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Any questions from board members? Okay, do I have a... did you have a question?
No, I said I'll move the item.
Director Linney, seconded by Director Patterson. Any discussion? Any public comment? Risha, do you need to unmute the lines to allow for anybody to...
Participant lines unmuted.
Is there anyone that has public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go forward with the roll call vote.
Directors Coleman,
Yes.
Katz,
Yes.
Linney,
Yes.
McIntosh,
Yes.
Mellon,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes. Okay, that leads us to, is it 17? The second reading of the Retirement Board Ordinance.
I would move it.
Yes, this is Lisa Serrani. I was waiting to see if the slides were going to come up.
Oh, you're ready.
Okay, thank you. This is Lisa Serrani, Manager of Employee Services. Thank you, President Young and directors and staff. Today I'm here April 28th, 2020 to present the second reading for an amendment to the district's Retirement Ordinance 40, Section 5D. At the end of this reading, there will be a vote required today. Sorry, let me do this. Cross control and tab.
You have control, Lisa.
There we go. Thank you. Oops, I went one too far. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Section 5D of the Retirement Ordinance excludes membership in the retirement system of an appointee to the general manager's position who is not already a member at the time of appointment. This language has been in place in Section 5D since 1991. Prior to 1991, Section 5D of the ordinance allowed all newly appointed general managers to become a member of the district's retirement system without exception. Since 1991, when the language change was made limiting membership, there have been 3 general managers hired. 2 were internal appointments, and 1 was an external appointee. This past year, in December, I keep forgetting to move forward. Forward. Thank you. In December of 2019, the current general manager announced his intent to retire. During the recruitment process to fill the general manager position, the district has received both internal qualified applicants as well as external qualified applicants. The external qualified applicants, who are not current members of the retirement system, would not be eligible to become members based on the current ordinance language. An amendment to Section 5D is required in order to allow retirement system membership to all candidates. Also, according to Government Code 7507, any changes to a pension plan must be actuarially evaluated to determine the impact of the change on the actual pension fund. The actuarial impact of making this change to the ordinance would not exceed 0.5% of the retirement funds for future cost. The steps that would be required to finalize adoption of this retirement ordinance amendment would be, we did our first reading on April 14th, 2020, this second reading, and we would have a vote to decide on adoption today, April 28th. If the vote is yes, the ordinance amendments must be placed in the newspaper for 2 successive weeks. Adoption of the ordinance amendment would then take effect 31 days after the vote to adopt, and staff would publish and distribute copies of the revised ordinance by June 30, 2020. So with this second reading today, staff would request that the board take a vote on making this amendment to Section 5D based on the notes in the resolution in your board packet.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions from board members?
Well, the matter appeared before
motion.
The matter appeared before the Finance Committee this morning, and it has the unanimous recommendation of the committee.
Okay, very good. Do I have a motion?
May I just take the opportunity to correct the record, and that this item was not discussed. There was another item that may be similar, but this particular item was not discussed by the Finance Committee. Thank you for allowing me to clarify.
Okay.
This is Doug Linney. I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved by Director Patterson, seconded by Director Linney.
Is someone there for public comment? Hello?
Eric Larson, Ask Me Local 444. I have a question. I don't understand what is meant by the statement that the actuarial impact of making the change to the ordinance would not exceed 0.5% of the retirement fund's future cost. I do understand that the retirement fund portfolio is about $2.6 billion, and by my rough math, 0.5% of $2.6 billion is about $13 million. But of course, I'm not an actuary, so I may be looking at these numbers incorrectly. I do question how much this change might cost our pension fund. The statement that's provided in the presentation does not make that clear to me. Thank you.
Hi,
this is Lisa Serrani.
Lisa, do you want me to answer that? I since I worked with Lourdes on that part of it, I'm happy to answer, or you can as well.
Yes, Sophia, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So, first of all, I just want to say, Eric, I'm so happy that you're delving into the details and doing those calculations, because the more people that do it, the better. So that statement is basically PEPRA, the new law, requires that you demonstrate that whatever change you make is not more than than that level of impact, that 0.5%. The reality is actually that introducing a new general manager from the outside technically would be cheaper than having an internal person, because any internal person is going to already have time that's vested in the system. So it's a weird
statement, but it's a statement that's required, as I understand from Lourdes, by law to be in compliance with PEPRA, that says that whatever change you make, and this is a change of now allowing, in our plan, an external general manager to participate, would not be cost more than 0.5. It would actually be a savings in the case of the district, but it is true that it would not cost 0.5% more.
Does that answer your question, Eric?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, the rationale for my support, strong support actually, of making this change in the ordinance is that, everybody that's working for the district should be playing by the same rules, and that includes the general manager. And there's, as we've discussed previously, there's some lack of clarity about how we ended up with this making this change in the ordinance in the first place. So I think it's appropriate practice to, basically have everybody under the same system and not have the most highly paid employee in the district making their own deal. So that's where I come from on it. Is there any other discussion from other board members? Nope. Okay. Hearing none, we will take a roll call.
All right. Directors Coleman?
Yes.
Katz?
Yes.
Lenny?
Yes.
McIntosh?
Yes.
Mellon?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
President Young?
Yes. Okay. That takes us to item 18, General Manager's Report.
All right, so we'll have Clifford Chan, Director of Operations and Maintenance, provide an update on the coronavirus situation.
Can you share the screen? Because my mouse is just doing weird things. And there you go.
Hang on, bud.
Good afternoon, President Young, members of the board. I'm going to provide you a brief update on what we're doing with respect to the coronavirus. This first slide should be familiar to you. It summarizes what we've been doing to help our customers out. The first line shows a number of customers that still need their service restoration. This number really hasn't changed substantially from update to update, and for all practical purposes, we've restored service to all the customers that needed their service restored. As far as payment plans and extensions granted, we're at 3,254, and just as a point of reference, 2 weeks ago we were at 2,790. And for 48-hour notices withheld, that's at 10,830, and 2 weeks ago we were at 7,244. For late payment penalties, since March 12th, we've accumulated around $158,000 in late payment penalties on 27,000 accounts. And again, 2 weeks ago, that was around $100,000 for 17,150 accounts. As far as CAP applications, through April 21st, we're at 7,269. And just for kind of historical perspective, we typically have around 7,000 CAP participants. The good news that we have is through April 21st, 94% of our customers have either paid their bill in full or made partial payments. Moving to the next slide. So the previous slide talked about how we're helping customers and how many customers are paying their bills. This graph shows how much water we're producing, and it shows this year in red and last year is kind of that light shaded blue. And you can see that this year is tracking right now pretty well with what it was last year. The bars at the bottom show the precipitation data. As was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting, because most of our bills are read bi-monthly, it's still a little too early to tell what the impact is on individual business classes. But we do have, moving on to the next slide, but we do have AMI data on about 5% of our customer meters. And this just shows a breakdown by general business class categories. So we are actually going through the data. We don't have the information yet, but we're going through the data to see how our customer usage has been affected, either going up or down, using our AMI data. Hopefully we'll have that analysis done in the next week. Moving on to the next slide. A couple of Fridays ago, there was a requirement, which is why everybody here is wearing face coverings, and why I'm having a lack of oxygen to my head right now. But they're requiring face coverings for all staff. There are some exceptions, so if you're in your office by yourself, if we have an employee driving a vehicle by themselves, they don't need to wear a face covering. And the district is providing face coverings for all staff. As far as COVID-19 testing, so we did send employees, and we started with the water and wastewater operators on April 10th to get COVID-19 testing. And these were kind of proactive testing. The employees didn't have to show any sort of symptoms. When we first started working with them, they did have a limited amount of testing that's available. That's loosened up a bit, and we're able to send more staff to get tested. And just today, we submitted names for 55 more staff to go get tested from the wastewater department, and we intend to send many more names of employees to get tested as well. CMUA also had access to additional testing. They were working with the Northern and Southern California power agencies, along with the California Energy Commission. They had access to several hundred tests a week that could be provided to utilities. But as we looked into this, it wasn't as good as the Oakland site. They only provided the test kits, and then UC Berkeley would do the analysis. But we had to set up with our healthcare professional to order the kits, perform the tests, and send the tests over to the UC Berkeley lab. And with the City of Oakland expanding the testing or allowing us to send more staff, that's the route that we're going to be taking. As far as employee safety guidelines, the California Occupational Safety and Health Standards Board, they're a 7-member board that sets standards under Cal OSHA. They met on April 16th to hear feedback from stakeholders. The stakeholders have requested the board expand the aerosol transmissible disease standard to other industries, remembering that the standard really applies to the healthcare industry in general. They also want to provide a minimum level of safety for essential workers. So essential workers includes East Bay MUD employees, but also includes healthcare employees, as an example, or grocery store workers are also essential workers. The likely outcome is that they would broaden the existing regulations, and there might be new COVID-19 employee safety regulations. The good news here is that our safety guidelines follows all the guidelines that's consistent with the CDC, the Department of Public Health, and then OSHA as well, and industry best practices. So when we look at what standards might be in place, any new standards, we're already doing most of what's being required. Some of the things that might be added are some training that we would provide.
Clifford, do you have an idea of when those regs might be put in place?
What the board asked, they agendize this for their next board meeting next month, so we won't hear back for at least another month of what direction they're going to be going. And finally, I just want to end with our work on our reconstitution plan. So the reconstitution plan provides the framework of how we return to normal operations. That transition, again, will take months to over a year when you look at what's going on with respect to COVID-19. We are going to incorporate any new safety guidelines. Just as an example of how fast things are changing, just yesterday we were meeting to talk about CDC's new, symptoms for COVID-19. They added a few more. And in our very brief 30-minute meeting, we pulled up the website, and minutes later, they changed the guidelines. So it's very fast changing. We are planning to start up some construction and maintenance activities in May, in particular the capital projects that we held off for about a month. Delaying those further is going to create some issues for projects that are, require these projects to be completed. Then we're going to be looking at pipeline projects as well as our applicant work. Starting tomorrow, we're going to be sending notifications to customers to let them know that we'll be starting work for some of these projects. And then we do plan, as far as the reconstitution plan, we're going to have a discussion with the senior management team tomorrow about the plan. We hope to have a draft completed this week, and then we'll be sharing the draft with the unions to get their feedback as well. With that, I can take any questions.
Questions from board members? I just want to say, thank you for all the work you're doing, and would want to echo the kudos to Eileen on the work at Wastewater, it's going to be, we are in a time of great uncertainty, and the great need for precaution and prudence and careful consideration of how to proceed. And I can't imagine a better group of people to be figuring that out. So, okay, there's no action on this item. Takes us to my screen. I lost my screen again. It's a battery-saving feature. Committee reports and director comments. Actually, I didn't ask if there was any public comment on agenda item 18.
Okay.
Participant lines muted.
Okay, hold on.
Participant lines unmuted.
Okay.
Is there any public comment on item 18? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to reports and director comments. We have committee reports. We had Planning and Legislative HR Committee met on April 14th, and those minutes are included in the packet. We will now take reports from the Sustainability and Energy Committee, followed by the Finance and Administration Committee. Director Linney? Doug? You might be on mute.
Mute, sorry. We met this morning for the Sustainability and Energy Committee. We heard 3 reports with regard to renewable energy update, integrated pest management program update, and the electric vehicle charging stations. And they were all good reports, and nothing else really to add there.
Okay, moving right along. Director Patterson, do you have a report from the Finance and Administration Committee?
Yes, the Finance and Administration Committee met this morning. It reviewed the energy policy and update, investment policy, annual review, extend standby letter of credit and reimbursement agreement for commercial paper notes, the removal of suspension from Wells Fargo financial investment activities, the fiscal impact of COVID-19 to the district, and the monthly investment transactions, and the quarterly payroll and quarterly investment report. Except for the fiscal impacts of COVID, which are unknown at this time, they're following those very closely. All the other matters went with the recommendation of the committee to this meeting today. That's my report.
Thank you, Director Patterson. All right. For items for future consideration, if you have items for future consideration, please submit them to the general manager. Are there any other director comments?
If I may,
I'd like
please.
to just comment on the fact that I attended the EBMUD Board Meeting on the April 9, and I attended the UMRA meeting on April 24.
Okay, thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
The coronavirus has hit us all in various ways, and Shabolos Positas had a longtime member of its board, Marshall Mitzman, succumbed to it at the Gateway Nursing Facility here in Hayward. And, you know, I would like permission from, or at least get acceptance that if I can find somebody to send a condolences letter to them, if that would be all right. Because he really was a really nice person and really cared a lot about our community and was very active in the communities.
Yeah, I think we can make that so. There's also, and sadly, I believe we'll be hearing more of these.
True.
We also have a request to adjourn. And John, I don't know if you wanted to raise this, or Frank, is that we have in addition to adjourning in honor of Workers' Memorial Day, we also have a request to adjourn in honor of, sorry, I'm going to mispronounce the name, Director Michalov.
Oh, yes.
Michalov from Dublin San Ramon Resources District.
We should, yes.
John, did you want to say anything?
It's just that she's been part of DSRSD, and they've been a great partner with EBMUD over the years, and her support has allowed us to do great things with DERWA.
And she passed earlier this month. So condolences letters to both, and then we will also adjourn in honor of Workers' Memorial Day.
Here, here.
Okay. Well, with that, the next meeting of the board will be held on May 12th, 2020 at 1:15 p.m., and we are now adjourned.